Many antiques have a high market value for a variety of reasons. However, vintage timepieces, especially Rolexes, are unique. They are priceless artifacts that have skyrocketed in value during the past decade. In fact, the value of certain antique Rolexes increased more than that of gold or even real estate. Prices for pre-owned Rolexes have risen consistently over the past few years. Watch enthusiasts are always on the lookout for vintage pieces, such as a Submariner from the 1970s with an authentic dial or a Daytona from the 1960s with a damaged band. Buying a watch from the year you were born became somewhat of a fad as well. The rising popularity of antique Rolex watches can be partially attributed to the fact that some collectors are trying to track down a model that was produced in the same year they were born. In an effort to escape a monotonous modern environment, many people are avidly searching for old objects to add to their collections. That's why pre-owned Rolexes are so popular. This begs the question, are pre-owned Rolexes a safer bet for long-term investment than new Rolexes? Welcome to Lux Life, and when it comes to luxury and lifestyle, we've got you covered. But before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Now, let's start. New watches, as we all know, usually lose value as soon as the buyer takes them home. You can save 20% if you wait for the original owner to take a loss and then buy the model from them when they're ready to sell. However, this is most definitely not the case while discussing old Rolex watches. So, what's so special about vintage Rolex watches? Number 1. People are willing to pay what they are worth at any given time. You see, the demand for vintage Rolex is very high right now. Just like for any other item that can be sold, this means that collectors are eager to buy from anyone who is willing to sell. Number 2. A Rolex from the 1950s is worth more than a Rolex from the 1980s. More people are buying vintage watches, which are ones that were made at least 30 years ago. Remember the Daytona that Paul Newman used? Because of the famous actor, this model became very popular. His real watch was sold recently for about $18 million. Watches from this time are very valuable, and collectors would give their last dollar for a Paul Newman from this time. Number 3. Rarity is something to look into as well. One of the reasons why vintage Rolex is a superior investment choice is the same reason why people are willing to pay high prices for antiques: rarity. It stands to reason that if something is scarce, others will pay more for it. Therefore, scarcity promotes demand, as well as the maximum return available for your old Rolex. Numerous Rolexes were manufactured decades ago. However, not all have survived to the present day. Numerous others are housed permanently in museums or private collections. As a result of its rarity, demand will always exceed supply. Number 4. A vintage Rolex's value doesn't always go down because of wear and tear. Any scratches or dents on a historic timepiece are to be expected and celebrated, as opposed to the sterility expected of modern timepieces. However, a buyer will usually examine a watch before deciding on a price. The parts would be examined initially. Collectors of timepieces place a high priority on using authentic components. The value of your vintage Rolex will increase if it retains either its original dial mechanism or bezel. It is a common misconception that upgrading a vintage timepiece by installing new components will increase its value. Although vintage Rolex watches that have been updated with new movements, dials or bezels may still fetch a reasonable price, they won't fetch as much as those that retain their original equipment. A tropical dial is something a buyer will look for as well. Old Rolex watches with sun-faded brown or orange dials used to be considered junk, but today they fetch top dollar at auction. There is a noticeable variation in the degree of fading between the various dials. Given that newer watches don't fade in the sun as they used to, tropical dials are a rarity in Rolex watches manufactured after 1980. Furthermore, they would look for a few good flaws on the watch. For a well-known company like Rolex, Factory flaws are unusual to see, so a defect like a misprinted dial is something to keep an eye out for because it can be sold for a good sum of money. They would also look at how worn it is generally. Scratches and other signs of wear are to be expected on an old, well-loved watch. A collector will want to see the original packaging and paperwork for your watch before making an offer. But don't worry, you don't need the original box and papers just to sell your watch, although they are of great use if you still have them. Now that we've discussed selling vintage Rolexes, we can shift our focus to purchasing one. In order to obtain your money's worth, you should get a watch that is currently in high demand. Finding out which Rolex models are the most desired might be tricky though, so do your own research. Rolex sports watches typically maintain or increase in value. A few of the most well-known sports timepieces are made by Rolex, including the GMT Master 2, Daytona, and Submariner. All Rolex sports watches are highly sought after, but the models that have been discontinued are more likely to increase in value. The Rolex Hawk Submariner and Rolex Batman GMT Master 2 are just two examples of limited edition sports watches that have seen their value rise over time. Not only can recently discontinued sports models increase in value, but so can popular earlier models. Because of their widespread reputation, Rolex sports watches tend to increase in value over time. Rolex sports watches aren't going to go out of style anytime soon, but it's crucial to keep in mind that fashion evolves with time. Due to their increasing rarity, vintage Rolexes are a safe investment right now. If you're looking for a quality timepiece, go no further than a vintage Rolex. After all, the odds of there being any problems with it are very low. It is also important to remember that the resale value of the timepiece is another advantage. The ready availability of old timepieces is another factor to think about. With new Rolexes, there is a crazy waitlist that everybody needs to get on and the almost immediate devaluation. In any case, if you're set on keeping your new Rolex, be sure to shop carefully and only from a reputable establishment with a good reputation for customer service and quality guarantees. We hope that you finally find the perfect timepiece that you are looking for. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, click subscribe, and hit the notification bell to receive updates in our latest videos. Also, feel free to leave us a comment if you want to watch more videos. Head on over to our channel to see more from Lux Live. See you!